To me, 30 meters.
Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. Folks, today we're going to have a bit of a paradigm shift when it comes to our understanding of Torah study. What does Torah mean to you? Torah could easily mean like, if you're bored and if you have nothing else to do, and if it's raining because there's no golf, then maybe I'll go study some Torah. Folks, we here have revolutionized together. We have revolutionized Torah study like never in the history of the world. That's what's happening on this YouTube channel. It's amazing. Matt, you and I, we study Torah on a regular basis, and we don't even see each other physically like all that often, right?
Every week.
Exactly every week. People bump into me and they say, Rabbi Vigler, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. And it's an amazing thing because they study with me here. What's happening is in Jewish history, there were some of the largest events of Torah study. What was called the Yarchei Kala, which means the months of the bride. These would be the seasonal gatherings of Torah study. They would describe them as several thousand students coming together, up to 10,000 students coming together to study Torah from the Talmudic sages. Now, who am I and what am I to compare to them, God forbid? But here we are, we have 75,000 subscribers to this channel, in addition to all the esteemed men around this table, right? It's amazing that we're studying Torah in levels that have never seen the light of day in the history of the world. And today, we're going to learn the incredible power of Torah study. Torah is not just a hobby. Torah is not just a book of weird and interesting bites of information for people that are cerebrally inclined to such information. I mean, think about it. In America, who studies American law? Think about it. Have you ever read American law books? Have you ever read, Toby, have you read manuals of American law? Who reads American law books? Yeah, this guy here.
Rob.
If you're making $500 an hour, okay, right, then you'll read it. But can anybody, like, in their free time on a random Sunday afternoon, right, or like wake up early on a regular morning, on a weekday morning before work to study law manuals? I mean, who does this? Nobody does this. But as Jews, it's a commandment. It's a mitzvah, folks. It's a mitzvah to study Torah. In fact, sorry, it's a mitzvah to study Torah at every free moment. In fact, Mark, this is going to be very radical. You ready for a radical statement for me?
I'm ready for it.
You can handle this?
I can handle it.
You're such a good guy. So the Torah says, and Tanya chapter 1 re-echoes this message. What's a Beinoni? What's a Beinoni? The struggling Jew. The Beinoni is the Jew who's not a wicked Jew, right? He's not a Russian. He never actually sins. The Beinoni never actually sins in thought, speech, and action, right? Right? The Russian is the one who actually sins. One thought, one speech, one action, right? To be a Beinoni means that you don't have one moment of wasting time from Torah study. What? Which means that if you could have studied Torah and you didn't, you're considered a sinner. I mean, do you realize how crazy that is? I mean, now let's be clear. That doesn't mean that from the moment you open your eyes until the moment you close your eyes, you got to be studying Torah. It's not what it means, because you need time to wake up, to say hello to your family, to have a coffee, to go to the bathroom, take a shower, get dressed, right? You don't need to be studying Torah during that time. You need to be eating 3 meals a day and snacks. You need to be having time to socialize, right? But there's discretionary time to your day, right? I call it the Netflix time, right? The Netflix time when people spend just doing nothing. When you have that discretionary time, we have an obligation to study Torah. And the question is why? Why? Well, what is it about Torah that we have to suddenly study? Like, why is it that we Jews have an obsession to study Torah? Why do we have to study Torah? Is it because we're trying to become a rabbi? Is it because we need to know the application of random pieces of law? Like today, we learned in the Rambam. We learned about the mitzvah that when you have to bring a burnt offering, you're not allowed to eat from the meat of the burnt offering. And if you do a sin, you have to bring a sin offering. I mean, okay, maybe that'd be good for the rabbis and the priests in the temple to know very well, right? If I have a need to bring one of those offerings, I'll pay a rabbi or a priest, and you'll tell me which ones to do. Like, why do I need to learn all the nuances? Yes.
from my perspective, just humble Mark's experiences, I feel it challenges our mind to the highest degree that I get excited.
Fine. So you're saying it's intellectually stimulating.
Yes.
Okay. Today we're going to go into a spiritual plane, of understanding of what it is that Torah is so sacred about. And we're going to learn it within the context of an obscure law of Torah. It's the law, which comes up in this week's Torah portion, the law of the inadvertent murderer. I believe that in American law, that's called manslaughter. Is that what it is? Manslaughter, when you kill someone by mistake, right? So what happens if somebody kills someone by mistake in America? What's the law if you kill someone by mistake?
Get a good lawyer and try to get one.
Yeah, get a good lawyer. Okay, good. But if you kill someone by mistake, what's the law in America? What happens? Guy goes to jail. What happens?
Yeah, you get convicted. You go to
Okay.
jail.
Not as severe as deliberate. What's it called? What's the next level called?
Homicide one.
Homicide, right?
Actually,
Third
you
degree.
write the book.
Is this thing called third degree, second degree murder?
Yeah.
All right, fine. So what happens
First
now?
degree
So in America, you go to jail. Now, jail is a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing because you're taking a human being and you're locking them up in a cage. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible thing because human beings weren't made to live like plants. What's a plant? A plant is something which is rooted to the spot, right? If you take a human being and you put him in a cage, you're turning him into a plant, into a vegetable, where they're rooted to a spot. They don't have the freedom to innovate, to do what they were born to do, right? And it's a terrible thing. Now, admittedly, you're trying to protect society from them, right? Then that's a fair, argument. Also, you have to. There's an element of retribution. If there's no retribution for your crimes, then what's going to be the, preventing people from doing that? But Torah has a very interesting solution to the inadvertent murder, and we learn about it in this week's Torah portion. That solution is called the cities of refuge, the sanctuary city. The sanctuary city. What's a sanctuary city? There were, I think, it was 42 cities throughout the Promised Land. There were, scattered throughout the Promised Land, and these were the Levite cities. The Levite cities were the cities that the inadvertent murderer would have to run to after the murder. And as long as he was inside of the city of refuge, the sanctuary city, he was safe in the sense that nobody was allowed to kill him. But if he was to step outside of the boundaries of the sanctuary city, then the next of kin of the deceased, of the victim, are allowed to spill his blood without consequence. So it's interesting because what happens is now the guy continues his life. He's not turning into a vegetable. He's living in the sanctuary city. The problem is he can't leave the sanctuary city, but is it called house arrest maybe? Maybe it's called house arrest. It's not in your house. It's in somebody else's house, right? Where you basically have to, it's very inconvenient. I mean, think about it. If you're living in Manhattan, you're living in Miami, you got a good life, you got your friends, your family, your shul, your thing, right? Your grocery store, your office, and now suddenly you hit someone in the road, and now you got to move to Pahokee, Florida. That's not going to be very convenient. But hey, I mean, at least you're not stuck in a cell. And until when does he have to live there? The Torah is going to tell us that he lives until the death of the high priest. That's when when the high priest dies. That's when all inadvertent murderers are released. So it's interesting. It's like an interesting concept, right? The question is, what does that got to do with our lives today? This law is okay. It's good for biblical times when you had sanctuary cities, but what's going to do with our lives today? Today we live in a world where we've got courts and secular systems of law. We don't have these sanctuary cities in play, and Torah is eternal. So if the Torah is eternal, then why is it that we're taught this law? Why do we have to read this law this Shabbos? Like, why do we have to come to shul this Shabbos to read this law if it's not really relevant to us? The answer is that Rabbi tells us there's no such thing as a piece of Torah that's not relevant to us. Every single piece of Torah is relevant. What does the word Torah mean? Torah means life guide. That's what it means. The word Torah means a life guide in every situation and in every circumstance. You can always find the answers to your questions through the weekly Torah portion. That's what it means to live with the times. And hence, the Rebbe is about to crack the code for the modern day application of the sanctuary city. We're going to talk about the sanctuary cities for our souls. And if you might have figured out already, it's going to have a lot to do with the study of Torah. Right? Torah is going to be our sanctuary city. Let's take a look at the concept within the Torah, within the Bible here, page 1085. Cities of refuge, sanctuary cities, middle of the page. Here goes. Page 1085, verse 41. So it's Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 41. It was then that he understood that God was not going to allow him to cross over into the land of Israel, that Moses decided to designate 3 cities on the side of the Jordan River that is toward the direction of the sunrise to the east. So Moses understood he's not going to enter the promised land in this lifetime. So he decides to begin to designate the sanctuary cities. Remember, 2.5 tribes were going to settle the land east of the Jordan River, so that a murderer might flee there, provided that he murders his fellow man inadvertently, not having hated him in the past and not having premeditated the murder. CP said it's premeditated, so it's an exclusion. Okay, he may flee to one of those cities in order that he might live. The cities that Moses designated were Bethser in the desert, in the plain country of the tribe of Reuven, Ramoth and Gilad, the territory of the tribe of Gad, and Golan in the Bashan, the territory of the tribe of Menashe. That sounds like the Golan Heights, right? The following is the corpus of instruction that Moses now set before the Israelites. Here goes. No, I think that's all I need to do right now. Here, fine. So that's really what we needed to know. So the details of the law were really were detailed in last week's Torah portion. That we have these sanctuary cities, and we explained how they work. The question is like this. By the way, the way it worked was that there were wide roads, 32 cubits wide. 32 cubits is somewhere between 64 and 48 feet wide. These were very, very wide roads, which led the way to the city of refuge, the sanctuary city. And there were signs on the roads that said miklat, which meant refuge, in order to direct an inadvertent murderer. Because, he wasn't planning on killing someone. So imagine you killed someone and like the guy was trying to kill you, the victim's family was trying to kill you. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You can't run to a court. You can't run to a police station. So you just got to get out of there. You got to skedaddle and get over to a city of refuge. So these signs are clearly marked, right? How does this concept apply in our lives today? The Rebbe explains so beautifully. This is the beauty of Chassidus. Chassidus is the soul of Torah, right? Just like our beings have a body and a soul. Everything in the world is a body and a soul, right? You've got the food that you eat, you've got the body, the way it looks, and then you got the nutrients, the vitamins, the enzymes, the metabolism, whatever inside, right? So you've got like in an advertising campaign, you got the way it looks on the outside, and you got the brains behind it, right? There's the body and the soul, the hardware and the software. Torah is the same thing. There's the hardware of Torah, which is the hard and fast, the legal component, the part that you see. And then there's the hidden part of Torah, which is the soul of Torah. That's what Hasidus is. This is what Chabad is all about. Chabad, remember, is not a denomination of Judaism. Chabad is an expose of the secrets of Torah. That's what it is. It's a library. It's a meditation. It's a mindset which focuses on the soul of Torah and the hidden part of Torah, right? And makes it rational. So the Rebbe explains that what does it mean to murder someone? Have you ever murdered someone, Rob? I'm sorry, that didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Not yet, but he lives in a sanctuary city. It's true.
Murdering someone is actually something which might sound like a jarring question, which was my intention, but I didn't mean to be so direct. But in fact, from a Hasidic perspective, we are all guilty of murder. Yes.
Isn't it because God created all creatures, so when we kill little bugs, we're murdering, or is that what He created?
I don't think we're talking about. No, it says the Torah is explicit about a person who kills a human.
Okay.
Kills his fellow man. If you look in the verse, verse 42. A murderer might flee there provided that he murders his fellow man. In a verse. It doesn't talk about cockroaches. It doesn't say that. Let's try though. Okay. Murdering a man. Remember, we learned even this morning that man is created in the image of God. Our souls are godly. So what happens, and this is a major theme in Tanya, is that when we make a choice to sin, what are we doing? We're desecrating, we're violating the image of God with which we were created. Tanya describes to us that essentially we've got two souls within us. We got a godly soul and an animal soul, right? We're like a piece of God, and a beast inside of us. And if the beast takes control of us, then it forces the piece of God within him to descend into the lowest depths of depravity. In the words of the Tanya, it's like you got the king's head in your hand, like you're holding the head of the king, and you flushing it into the toilet, because your sin is an act of filth, right? But because the king has entrusted his essence within you, you're taking the piece of God and you're putting it in the toilet. It's a grave desecration. It's treasonous. This is how Hasidus understands the meaning of murder. Somebody who severs the connection between his godly soul and God. That's essentially what a sin is. Remember, Tanya explains this theme that we have 613 commandments because we actually have 613 strands or pipelines of connection to God. Right? Just like a diver. Remember the olden day divers that had those like little, those helmets with like air pipes, right? So imagine you have 613 air pipes, right? And it's good. 613 is enough to breathe from. But imagine if you cut like 20 of them. It might get a little claustrophobic, right? Why not cut them?
Because Tanya also teaches that we have klippa. We just kind of cover them with a thick shell. We're not cutting our connection to God.
Tanya actually says that when you do a sin, you're severing your connection to God. Tanya says that. Yeah, that's the meaning of a sin.
On the other hand,
and by the whole concept, by the it's interesting. It's interesting you talk about this because when we speak about the concept of death, the death penalty, it sounds so gruesome. People are like, well, Rabbi, if I flick a light switch, does that mean I'm going to die? If I flick a light switch on Shabbos, does that mean, is God so pedantic that he cares if the spoon is milchik and it was within 4.5 hours that I ate it, and therefore God is gonna take my life? You have to understand it not from a physical sense that God is trying to kill you, but from a spiritual sense. That when you violated the will of God, what you've done is that you've severed the connection to God. Now, what is God? What is God? And you who are cleaving to God Almighty are alive, all of you today. God is the only entity in the universe that is alive. Think about it that way. God is the source of all life, and everything that exists is an extension of God's energy. But the only thing that actually exists is God. We learned this yesterday in Maimonides, that what is the definition of God, if you could even say such a paradox to define Almighty God? God is the original source of energy of all of existence, that which has no prior source. So God is the orb. God is the light. God is the energy. Now, what happens if you say, actually, no, thank you? Then what have you done? If you say, oh, you want me to do this? No. Then what happens? I've now severed my connection to you, or in this case to God, which is in this one channel. I said no, so I've closed the door. I've closed the window to my pipeline to light, and that's why it's death. That's the reason why it's death, because God is life. So when I do a mitzvah, remember the word mitzvah is not just a commandment, which sounds so shallow and so controlling. The word mitzvah means connection. Mitzvah means connection. In Hebrew, tsevet means a team of people working together. That's a tsevet. A mitzvah means a connection. When you do a mitzvah, it's an opportunity to become one with the source of life. Let me just finish this point. I'm just developing an idea. So when you do a mitzvah, you're opening a lifeline. That's what you're doing. You're hook, sink, and anchor is whatever the expression is. When you're doing a mitzvah, you're connecting to the source of life. So instead of looking at a mitzvah as a drag, we look at it as an opportunity to connect with infinity, with the source of life. When you make the choice to turn your back on a mitzvah, you're saying, no, thank you. So you're like, okay. You're like, so God says you're on your own. But on your own, you're not life. God is life. You're just nothing, right? Imagine if the television screen says to the power supply, you know what? I don't believe in electricity. Imagine if television said, you know what? I've got Netflix, I've got Roku, I've got Apple TV, I've got CNN, I've got Fox, I've got ABC and NBC. I don't need your electricity. I've never seen electricity. I've never heard of electricity. I don't believe in electricity. I'm cutting the cord. What's going to happen? You're getting me in the dark. That's what a Jew is. When he says, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in electricity. I don't believe in the source of life. You've severed your connection, and that is an act of murder, more specifically an act of suicide. Now we're beginning to place the portion of the Torah in the right context. Now suddenly it's becoming eerily relevant to our lives. Instead of reading about something which happens in northeastern Golan Heights, something which happens like in the region of Syria or Iraq, or an ancient story about some inadvertent murderer. Suddenly we're talking about me who forgot to daven this morning, or maybe I missed a tefillin the other day, or maybe when the rabbi called, I ignored the phone call, or whatever, right? Then, and you start to realize, 1 second, so we're, I might be a murderer. I might be responsible for having severed my own soul's connection to God. So instead of thinking about killing cockroaches, now we're thinking about killing like the image of God. That's me, right? And how many sins have I done that have severed my connection to God? And is there any hope for me? Now it becomes very, very concerning. And this is where Moses, what's Moses? Moses is the shepherd of Israel. Moses is our eternal guide. He's our shepherd. He's our coach. And he says, guys, listen, I'm not entering the promised land, but let me give you the keys to the kingdom. How moving of a legacy. How moving of a bequest that Moses is leaving to his children that he never met. He says, guys, listen, I know it's going to be rough out there. I know you're going to be guilty of murder. But there's a sanctuary city for your soul. And how do you find the sanctuary city? The Rebbe explains, what is the sanctuary city? He quotes the Gemara in Makos. Makos is the Gemara which focuses on flagellations, on whippings, right? There in Makos 10a, the Gemara says that just like the sanctuary cities serve as a safe haven, a refuge for the person who killed another by mistake, so too do the words of Torah serve as a den, a safety net, a sanctuary, a refuge for those who have committed acts of murder. You can always find refuge, find solace, and find healing within the words of Torah. What this essentially means is like this. You didn't go to Hebrew school? You didn't have a bar mitzvah? You were a cutthroat, bloodthirsty usurer. Is that the word? Usurer? Somebody charges interest? Usurer. There's an R in there. Ursurer. I can't even pronounce the word. Okay. Usurer. Usurer. If you were a person that would just, stab your friends in the back, charging them shark rate interests and just slandering other people and just not being nice to your wife or your husband or your kids or your parents or your friends, and you're just a nasty person, there's hope for you. There's hope. You've done a lot of sins. You know what you can do? You can take a mikvah. You can dip into the well springs of Torah. Just throw yourself into Torah study like we're doing right here on YouTube, folks. In the world's, I wonder if this is the Guinness Book of Records, world's largest Torah study classroom. Can you imagine? 77,000 subscribers. Wouldn't that be interesting to know? If we have look, obviously we're not the largest Torah classroom. We have some great people. I'm going to study with one of them today. He's got 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. Rabbi Simon Jacobson, I think it is. But I guess as history goes, in terms of being able to reach the largest amount of sharing of Torah wisdom. Remember, this is the mission statement of Chabad. Remember the Baal Shem Tov in the year 1737. He was just 39 years old. His soul had an elevation. This is the founding mission statement of Chabad. His soul went up to heaven. Out-of-body experience, he saw the Messiah, and he asked Messiah, when are you coming? And Mashiach said to him, when your wellsprings, when your teachings will disseminate outward. This is the mission statement of Chabad, is to spread the teachings of these teachings, Torah, and the secrets of Torah everywhere. right? Not just to Jews, to Gentiles everywhere, right? The whole world shall be filled with the knowledge of God, like the water covers the ocean bed in fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah, right? So when we realize that that is what Torah is, you realize that Torah is not just a hobby. It's not just entertainment or edutainment. Torah is actually medicine for our soul. So if you have managed somehow to sever your connection to God Almighty, the way you can heal that is by throwing yourself into Torah study. And I want to encourage you. You could be studying Torah with me now, which is fantastic, and I'm thrilled and honored. And I love all the emails that I receive from students. One of our students here on the group here, he has been emailing me back and forth, and I asked him what he does, and he tells me that he does permits. He expedites permits.
Oh,
so we're working on a project right now. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it very much. There's different ways to study Torah. I want to encourage you to find a study partner. Someone that may be on your level. There's Torah is in English today. Everything's available in English. Whether you want to do it by yourself, you can read, you can review. Like I love to bring sources, and you can study the source material that I study. If you want to study on your own, take a piece of Talmud, take a piece of the weekly Torah portion. Subscribe. This is the best way to do it. Subscribe to chayenu.org, CHAYENU.org. Thank you very much. Thanks. I just want to show you everybody the book. This is chayenu.org. It's a weekly publication which thousands and thousands and thousands of Jews use. It's mailed to your house every day.
Wait, is that the right?
I don't know where it is.
No, I think you did have it right.
Yeah, it is here. Chayenu.org. You can just subscribe here. Chayenu, CHAYENU.org. And they mail you a book every week, which has the weekly Torah in English, the weekly Tanya in English, the daily, really. The daily thought for the day. Lots of amazing stuff. What did you want me to? Oh, Tuesday. Here, let's see what it says here. So you're sending me the message. Keith is showing me the message here. So the Torah is our refuge. It gives a summary of what I'm learning today. Allegorically, the study of Torah is our city of refuge. This is alluded to by the fact that in order for a city to be considered a city with regard to certain aspects of Jewish law, there must be at least 10 people living in it who study Torah all day long. Otherwise, it's not considered a city. The required number 10 alludes to the 10 powers of the soul. Okay, this is beautiful. This is very nice. So the idea here is that you can study Torah as healing for your soul. Now, what's interesting is that just like there's signs on the way to the sanctuary city that say miklat, miklat, refuge, refuge, so too God tells us, he implores us, I urge you to study Torah. That's what it says in the Torah. Why does God want us to study Torah? Not because he needs a fan club, but because he's allowing us to connect to him through the study of Torah. What is the study of Torah? Torah is God's wisdom. God has encapsulated his wisdom in bite-sized chocolate pieces that we can wrap our minds around. And when we study one little tiny piece of Torah, we have encapsulated a piece of God's essence. And when it comes to the essence of something, a little piece of the essence is equivalent to the entire essence, right? So what God has done for us in the study of Torah is that he's given us a piece of his essence. Remember the first word of the 10 Commandments in this week's Torah portion. The first word of the 10 Commandments, what is it? It's an Egyptian word, Anochi, I. Right? I know the Christians struggle with identifying the 10 commandments because there aren't actually 10 commandments. There's only 9, right? There's only 9 commandments. The first one is like God saying, hello, I'm the guy, right? That's not a commandment because it's not actually the 10 commandments. It's called the 10 utterances. In Hebrew, it's aseret hadiborot, which means the 10 statements, not the 10 commandments, just saying, FYI. So the first word of the 10 statements is Anochi, I, which is an acronym, Chassidus explains, for 4 words. And 4 words in Aramaic. Ano nafshi ksavis yehovis. I, my essence in my writings have infused. I, my essence in my writings have infused. This is what God is telling us. I've infused my essence into my writings. So when you study Torah, you are becoming intimate with God in the most intimate way possible. This is Tanya chapter 5. If you remember, Tanya chapter 5 says that the uniqueness of Torah study is that the wisdom of God, which is one with God, God and his Torah are one. That's what it says in the Zohar. God and his wisdom are one, right? And when Torah goes into my mind, my brain, you can't differentiate between the wisdom and the brain. You can't differentiate. It's like, right? It's completely enmeshed, right? As opposed to a mitzvah. When I'm doing a mitzvah, I've got my arm and the tefillah. I've got my hand and the charity. I've got my stomach and the food, right? You can differentiate, right? But when it comes to Torah study, God and his wisdom and the person learning the wisdom are totally enmeshed. in the most wondrous union, more even than a conjugal union of marriage. So that's what Tanya says, right? So when we study Torah, we're becoming one with God. You've severed that connection. You've killed someone. You've killed a man. The murder. You're a murderer. Study Torah. Throw yourself in. And God is telling us, he's giving us the signs. He's like, listen, miklad, refuge, make your way. He's telling us study Torah. And that's why it's important. If we want to be saved from our inner murderer, if we want to be saved from identifying with our inner murderer, remember I said before, if you identify with your animal, with your beast, you're schlepping the prince, the king with you into the toilet, right? So if you want to be saved from future seductive experiences where you might be tempted to sin, to sever the connection, to experience an act of murder, then by you worrying about another Jew's sanctuary city, by you teaching another Jew Torah, then God reciprocates measure for measure. When you worry about another Jew's sanctuary, then God worries about your sanctuary. What does this mean? Folks, you always have to have a word of Torah on your lips. This is what it means. It's very, very interesting. I want you to try to get used to the following concept. It's called the Dvar Torah. Dvar Torah, how does that translate? A word of Torah. Every meeting, every encounter, you should infuse with a word of Torah. You want to have that business conversation blessed? You want to have that conversation with your grandchildren to be blessed? Make it a sanctuary conversation. Infuse a word of Torah. Imagine what would happen. You're speaking to your children or your grandchildren, and you say, hey, I wanted to share something with you which I thought was meaningful. And you go, and you share like a little nugget of Torah wisdom. What you've done is that you've shared Torah with that relationship. You've turned that relationship into something sacred. Imagine you sit every Friday night at the Shabbos dinner table, or every meal, or every business meeting, and you start off, I would like to share a word of Torah, which I found inspirational. Now, that's not preaching, that's sharing. I'm not going to call you the rabbi. You're just sharing wisdom. Is it such a terrible thing to not speak about Leonardo DiCaprio or about the latest idiot politician that has decided to throw Israel under the bus? Maybe we could elevate the conversation and say something which is actually inspiring and not downright depressing. Right? It's not a terrible thing. People might actually look forward to spending time with you if you're able to uplift them, right? If we can make sure to have a Dvar Torah on our lips at the ready every week, and every week you change the CD, you switch it out, right? Then what happens is you're infusing holiness and purpose and meaning and divine presence and divine essence into every encounter. Yes, Mark, you're going to say something?
You started with, do we murder somebody as and as I went through this, I understood what you're saying. I think when we say, oh, I'm done with this person because of their beliefs, isn't that kind of like...
that's like an act of murder, for sure. Right. When you say, I have no use for that person, when you say words like, I want to have nothing to do with that person again, he's dead to me. You've heard of those expressions? Yeah, that's an act of murder. Emotional murder, spiritual murder, might not be physical murder. But yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, look, I'm focused today more on suicide, of murdering of yourself. But of course, if you murdered someone else, right? And it might have been inadvertent because you didn't mean to kill them. You're just having pleasure. You're just indulging in some sort of a luxury, right? You didn't intend to like sever your relationship with God Almighty, right? That's what Tiny explains. The Jew never wants to separate his connection to God. He just does so out of distraction and confusion and a smoky haze, right? But if it happened, hope is not lost. The Baal Shem Tov says that a soul will descend to this world from the highest heavens, from beneath the heavenly throne, down to this distant and far and dark world for the purpose of doing a favor to a fellow Jew one time. The whole reason why you were born and went through school and college and marriage and children and grandchildren and multiple house movings and everything else could entirely have been, could quite possibly have been, says the Baal Shem Tov, in order to meet one Jew in an airport in Vienna, right? Or on a golf course in Mirasol, and to share with them a word of Torah. That is entirely possible why our souls might have come down to this world. Now, I know what you're thinking. They're not going to hear. If I'm going to say refuge, if I'm going to say, listen, it's not too late. You can study Torah. You can save your soul, right? There's a good story of a rabbi and a priest. They're sitting by a bridge. The rabbi and the priest are sitting by a bridge, and they put up a sign that says, repent. So it says,
The end is near.
It says the end is near. Yeah. It says the end is near. So some guy comes racing by, and he sees the rabbi and the priest with a sign, the end is near, and he says, "You guys are nuts." And as he's racing down the road, suddenly he hears a splash as his car crashes into the water. So the rabbi turns to the priest and he says, "Should we just switch out the sign to say bridge out?" When you tell people that you give them some spiritual guidance, spiritual solace, they might not be receptive to your message. The Rebbe assures us that you might not see the results in real time, but the seeds have indeed been planted. And at the very least, we know that when we care for God's children, then God will care for us as well. So even if in the worst case scenario, they will not be receptive to your message, at the very least, God is responsible to protecting you from falling next time, God forbid, that you might face a challenge. And it's with that awareness that we can take this week's Torah portion, make it ultra modern, ultra relevant, something which you can tap into at every moment of every day. Thank you to all these beautiful comments on YouTube, guys. Thank you for joining me here, and let's make it a great day.
I have a question.